magic. I'll have some of these at my table after. I'm just going to sort of review because this is like a long thing. Basically what it comes down to is Tom DeLonge comes forward. Tom DeLonge says, I've got 10 sources, government sources. He has the sources he says he has. But when I saw it, I immediately said, I've seen this before. In fact, I've seen this many times before. I've been in this since before Jesus was a carpenter, and I have been involved in almost everything that the American government has tried to drop into the UFO community. I was there with Bill Moore, I was there with NIDS, I was the one that exposed John Alexander's UFO working group as the Advanced Physics Theoretical Working Group. I've been there all the time, and so I'm saying, they're doing it again. So this is why I wrote the book. And what the book is, it just lists all the way through history, year after year after year. And you start looking at the pattern and you say, wow, they do this all the time. And this is a plan. And this, what I call it, it's called magic, because it's more than UFOs. When it was first identified by Ron Pandolfi, who's the key figure that I have in the book, he's the guy that has briefed the last 6 presidents. In 1991, he told Dan Smith, we have a phenomenology problem. And that's what you got to remember. That's the word that's used in the CIA, phenomenology. It's all the same thing. So remote viewing is connected, psychic phenomena is connected, UFOs, it's all the same sort of phenomena. And they're working at it, so they call it the phenomenology. And so I say it's more like magic. And this is how they manage the magic. And the question is, if you had to deal with this situation, how would you deal with this situation? So it's how do they manage the magic that they discovered in the 1940s? And I go through all the different years. I go and I have the 64 reasons why they've decided they're not going to make open disclosure. And basically, I have a disclaimer. I say that many of the things I have in the book may be wrong, but I will say that if they give me all the documents and sworn testimony from all the people that I want sworn testimony from, I'll correct all the mistakes. And then there's other programs. I will state there, I'm going to identify 9 disclosure programs. There's 6 teams that are busy operating for whatever reason. From January of 2016, something happened. They heard I don't know why it happened. It's January 16th, everything changed, and they are determined they're going to get this story out. But it's never going to be full disclosure. Disclosure means to disclose. It doesn't mean the president stands up and commits suicide on national TV, giving the whole thing, because it's all plausible deniability. You're never going to tie the president into Iran-Contra, you're never going to tie him into UFOs, and you're never going to tie him into the Russians. There's always plausible deniability that the president is an idiot, he doesn't know what's going on. So there's 3 options. The government, people say the government's covering up. They are not covering up. And when you read this book, there's no way you can say they're covering up. They are just dropping stuff left, right, and center. If you were to cover up, you'd do what the Canadian government did, you'd shut your mouth and not say anything. What does the Canadian government know about UFOs? Who knows? They've never talked about it. That's how you cover it up, by shutting up. The Americans have been dropping, and it's an American phenomenon. It doesn't happen in any other place in the world except in the United States, where they're leaking documents, there's whistleblowers. This is them trying to get the story out and protect the classified material. They're also not disclosing. If they were to disclose, they wouldn't come to me, they wouldn't come to you, they wouldn't come to all these people. They'd go to the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, and Fox News, and they'd take them for a tour to the base to show them the bodies and the craft, and then they take them into a news conference with the president. They're not disclosing, they're not covering up, which means they're doing something in between. And that's what I describe in this book. What are they actually doing? The discovery of magic, they discovered this in the 1940s, this phenomena, and Harry Truman talked about it openly. People say, oh, when the president stands up and says it's for real. Well, the president has done it 3 times. Harry Truman was the first to do it, and I'll play this, yeah.
They caused such panic that President Truman was forced to speak about them publicly. In a few short years, UFOs had reached the highest office in the land.
Oh yes, we discussed it at every conference that we had with the military. There's always things like that going on. Flying saucers, and we've had other things, you know.
So he said we discussed it at every conference we had with the military. And that was open, that was on TV. Walt Disney was offered a documentary, he was offered film footage. He did the documentary, they pulled the film footage. They've done that a number of times. They did it to Bob Emenegger in the 1970s. This is Bob Emenegger, he's a friend of mine. He was allowed to go into the Pentagon without signing in. He was allowed to talk to anybody he wanted. The CIA leaked him a story, which is in the book, about the CIA channeling an alien at the place where they analyze all the U-2, the SR-71 photographs and the spy photographs in Washington, D.C. They didn't have to tell that story. They told that story on purpose. And I've got the document, I've got the 6 CIA people who were in the room when they did the briefing on this channeling of an alien, where the alien flies by the window. And so they've done this over and over again. Bob told me his basic thing was that he was offered the film for the Holloman Air Force Base film, which a lot of high-ranking spook people contacted me and what do you know, and they're trying to find this film. And it was the story of landing at Holloman Air Force Base in 1971, 3 different cameras being shot. They knew this thing was coming down. And Bob had 8 seconds of the film in his documentary, but it doesn't show it up close, it doesn't show the aliens. And I said to Bob, I said, you know, if it weren't for the location and the fact that you said it was 6 in the morning and this is at night, this is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And he said, what, I didn't tell you? I said, no, you didn't tell me what? He said, I didn't tell you, I gave a copy to Steven Spielberg? And I said, no, you didn't tell me that. And he said, I told you, Annie Spielberg was the line producer for us. She worked on all sorts of documentaries on hypnosis and UFOs with us. And she said, Steven wants a copy of your film. So they give the copy in 1975 to Steven Spielberg, and then Steven produces Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is just a recreation of the same story. And when it was all over, Bob told me that Steven Spielberg's mother came up to him and said, I've seen your version of the landing, and I've seen Steven's version of the landing, and I like Steven's version better. This is 1978. I'm going to detail that Obama dropped something right at the end of his presidency. It seems to happen at the end of presidencies. This is the end of the Reagan presidency. This is a documentary called UFO Cover-Up Live. It ran, you find it on the internet, it ran in October 1988. And you'll see here on the chart, Area 51. Area 51 would not become public until spring of 1989. You'll see DIA being involved in a parapsychology research unit, which was true. It did not become declassified until they shut the program down in 1995. So there was a lot of classified material which was being revealed on this flowchart. For example, the Office of Navy Intelligence. Ron Pandolfi says everybody above a flagged officer at the Office of Navy Intelligence has been briefed on the subject. So you have this idea that Navy is running it, that there's all these different things, and they put it right in a flowchart, and nobody notices. So they are leaking this material, and the thing is, we can't confirm it. There's always plausible deniability. If you go to Ron Pandolfi, he'll say, whatever Grant said, I never said it. That's plausible deniability. Here's when Area 51 broke, the Senate Appropriations Committee that had all the money wanted to know, are we financing UFOs at Area 51? They sent Dick D'Amato, who is an investigator. He had every clearance you could. He could waive any clearance. He went to Area 51, and he goes back and he talks to Jesse Marcel in the sub-basement of the Capitol, and he shows him the book Majestic, which is about the Roswell crash and the fact that there was an MJ-12 that controlled this thing. And he pointed to the book, and he tapped the book, and he said, I just want to let you know this thing's for real. And Jesse said, yeah, I know it's for real, so why don't you disclose? And he said, if it were up to me, I would do it yesterday. It's not up to me. My job is simply to find out what it costs for the security. So he said, I just want to let you know there's a deep, dark part of government that's not elected, that has unlimited money and has control of the hardware. Chase Brandon walked into the UFO community in 2012 on the 65th anniversary of Roswell, the same way that Corso walked into the UFO community on the 50th anniversary of Roswell to drop his story, and he said, I also absolutely know as I sit here talking to you that there was a craft from beyond the world that crashed in Roswell. The military picked up the remains of just not wreckage, but cadavers, 100% guaranteed. Roswell happened, there was a craft, absolutely cadavers. He was the second top person in the CIA to speak publicly on behalf of the CIA without the permission, because he was the liaison to Hollywood. They would put the ideas in Hollywood as to what they want, and that's where a lot of the UFO ideas are put through, because it's an indirect way of getting the message across without offending people who really don't want to believe. He came in, he told this story, he walked away, and everybody let him walk back into the shadows. Key figure, and we had it, and nobody could nail this guy down. He said, if you want, he put a book on the fictional book on the Roswell crash, how the CIA had handled it. He said, if you want a good read the book. If you want to learn something, read between the lines. Here's the CIA starts to tweet. This is when X-Files comes out. They suddenly put out, they're not involved in UFOs, nothing's going on, and yet they put out an article on how to investigate a UFO sighting when X-Files comes out. And then when Barack Obama, 2 days before he leaves office, he drops the 12 million files, and 12 million pages of files, but you got to remember it's phenomenology files. It's remote viewing and UFO files. It's not one or the other. It's this from this phenomenology desk. And again, I said, people say, well, the president, if the president were to say it's for real, then I would believe. Well, in November of 2015, Barack Obama was giving an interview to GQ magazine, and he's always asked about the story about the Book of Secrets. What's the deal? Do you have the secrets, Mr. President? And Barack Obama says this, quote, you know, everybody always asks me about the Roswell and the UFO stuff. I just want to let you know that that top secret stuff is not as exciting as you think it is. Now, he's just opened it up. The guy, he just admitted there's top secret stuff on Roswell and UFOs, but it's not that exciting. And instead, the guy, as I say, either had a stroke or he fell asleep or whatever, because his next question was, would you like to be a Supreme Court justice? And they dropped the thing, and Obama handed it to him, and they didn't take it. So in the book, the way I set it up is there's 5 messiahs. There are 5 people who have been sort of chosen that believe it is their role to carry the message, and they're being leaked a lot of material. And here's the 5: Bill Moore, who I was involved with, Tim Cooper, who was involved in 3,700 pages of MJ-12 documents that were dropped in the 1990s and the early 2000s, Stephen Greer, Tom DeLonge, and Dan Smith, who I'm directly in contact with all the time. He's got only one source. Like Stephen's got 540 sources, Tim had about 5, Bill Moore had 24, Tom DeLonge has 12. And they all have the people they say they have. Dan Smith only has 1, but he gets an exemption because he has the main guy, Ron Pandolfi. Ron Pandolfi is the guy who briefed Donald Trump. So here's the 14 magicians. The magicians are the people who handle the magic, and they hand the material, as my acronym is, they hand it to the Messiah people. Here they are, and these ones in red are presidential briefers. Art Lundahl, who worked with the CIA channeling story. Kit Green, who ran the CIA Weird Desk, and briefed the president on UFOs from 1969 to 1983. Robert Gates, who was involved in disclosure with Bill Moore. He was CIA director. Ron Pandolfi, who's the guy who's the main guy right now. James Wosley, who helped Ron Pandolfi brief Donald Trump. And Jim Semivan, who is a new guy who is an experiencer. He had the beings in his room in the 1990s, and so he's one of us. And you got to remember that if there's 10% of people who've had experiences in the outside population, there are 10% of people in high-level government who are experiencers. Jim Semivan is one of them. He woke up in the night, his wife was bleeding, the beings were in the room, and he was determined to find out what was going on. Apparently he did not get briefed until after he retired. He was a presidential briefer. He retired in 2007. Then they told him he's running the Tom DeLonge operation. He's in charge of the Tom DeLonge operation, and he's in charge of an operation of a friend of mine where they're putting something else in Hollywood. So he runs some operations, and Ron Pandolfi, I have a list of 24 people that Ron has dealt with. Ron is sort of like the liaison. It's part of his job is to get this information into the UFO community, but create this plausible deniability. So here's the conditions that they have. This is just my guess. The officials lead the dance, which means they tell you what's going to happen. The officials will avoid people who have conspiracy theories, and at no time, unless they're putting a conspiracy theory in, which they will do to muddy the waters on a story that's really good. At no time will they accept a plan that the president stands up and does full disclosure. So this is what happens. I tried to get out of this. I tried, but Hillary started talking about UFOs, and I had done the Clinton stuff. Then I wrote the Hillary book, and then Hillary didn't make it in. And then suddenly there's a posting. I think I have it here. It was the 9 disclosures. This is posted in January of this year. Ron Pandolfi, friend. This is a guy, he's known as the Condor. And he puts on his Facebook page. From Ron Pandolfi, friend, got me interviewed by the CIA in 1992 at the National Intelligence Directorate on Trump and UFOs. So this is written after Trump wins the election. They may be anticipating some action. I have been waiting for the President-elect Trump to take office before taking more serious action. He is very pro-disclosure and very anti-disinformation. So I contacted everybody I knew who knew Ron Pandolfi, because I've been writing about Pandolfi for years. And the one person who said, yeah, I've been talking about him all the time. He's my best friend. Yeah, it was Dan Smith. He said, give me a phone call. I phoned him. I said, did he brief Trump? He said, yes, he briefed Trump along with James Wosley and a guy by the name of Mike Pillsbury. He was with Donald Trump almost every day during December. And then this is Ron Pandolfi. This is his wife who's involved. And anybody who wants to follow this, they are doing this on the internet. They have meetings on the internet. The next one is going to be, I think, the last Thursday of this month. I have business cards. Anybody can get one of my business cards. I'll put you on a list. If you want to watch this event take place on the internet, I will give you the link, and it's usually on 5 Eastern on a Thursday, and apparently they're going to have one, and it's run by Ron Pandolfi's wife. So he's this high-level intelligence guy. She's running it, so it's plausible deniability. So it's the president, the puppet master, the assistant puppet master, Dan Smith is the puppet. The puppet's talking to me, and now they want me to blog. They say, you're in. We want you to blog. We want you. And I said, okay, I'll blog, but you may not like what I'm going to blog. And so I'm a puppet talking to the puppet, talking to the assistant puppet master, talking to the puppet. And this is chain of command, and that's the way they want it. So that's fine. It's better than nothing. And here's they talk about, and so the idea they're trying to get across is the portal. And I believe the portal is to try to say that this is not nuts and bolts. This is much more complex than nuts and bolts. So they're giving this idea of the portal, a wishing well, that you can go into the portal and you can actually manifest on the other side. And one of the stories that they had told was that Ron Pandolfi had told Dan Smith in August of last year, Donald Trump's going to win the election. And of course, at that time, nobody believed it. He said he's going to win the election. And now Dan Smith claims that Ron told him that they went into the portal and they picked Trump. And that's how he got in. So this portal thing is what they're trying to push. And they're pushing it big time. And it's coming through Semivan, has confirmed it. He's the other CIA guy. They've confirmed this. And they've asked for volunteers, so you can come on this thing and volunteer. And they're going to on a field trip in October or whatever. And they're not guaranteeing anything. But this is the head guy. I mean, this guy, there's no doubt this guy, you don't know exactly what his job is, but he's high-level intelligence. And so this is the thing about 1983, the portal comes to America, and she's in charge of the portal, and so this is the story they're trying to put out. Now, whether it's true or not true, but they're desperately trying to get people to believe it. So here's Dan Smith, he's the main guy, and here's Ron Pandolfi, and this is where I differ from people that think there's an evil government, and I say if you take a look at this video, you're going to see Ron Pandolfi and his daughter, his name is Kashmir, and his daughter's sitting on his lap, 7-year-old daughter. And the question is he trying to destroy the world for his daughter? No, he may be deluded, but he's doing what he thinks is right. So here they ask Ron Pandolfi about the fact, are we going to have disclosure? Are we going to do something? And they're talking limited disclosure, they're not talking full disclosure. Here's what Ron says on camera.
So Fabio, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think in 2 weeks, Donald Trump is going to be assuming the role of President of the United States. And he's got a platform to try to make America great again. But he's going to have to deal with Dan Smith, where the world will simply collapse into singularity, and it'll all be gone.
It'll all be gone. So, and his wife, look at the look on his wife's face. She can't believe he said it. And here's him talking about the portal. I'll just show you this. You can see his daughter sitting on his lap. And then I'm going to, because it's so much noise, they're on a cruise ship, you can't really hear it, so I'm going to tell you what he says. So here's him sitting with his daughter, and here's him.
What about you? What do you have to say?
And this guy to the left has been through the portal twice. His name is John. He's a U.S. Marine. So he talks about it. Here's what he says. For thousands of years, people have speculated about what it's like to enter the entrance to another world. Now we are on the cusp of a breakthrough where the door is about to open. John, who's the guy sitting beside him, next adventure to the desert. Apparently the portal was at Area 51, and John's been through it twice. His next adventure to the desert, he will be joined by a couple people sitting here, which will bring them through the doorway and into the next world and then back. And Paula Harris has talked about portals. Suddenly, I thought portals was the stupidest idea in the world. Now it's like everything's portals. I mean, there's four new TV shows this year who have portals in them. Now, is that coincidence? Or is people like Chase Brandon putting these ideas in that, oh, put a thing about a portal? And they're trying to get this idea out. This is where Paula Harris's portal. We're going there in August to see whether we can go through the portal. There were 6 people or 7 people chosen at a time. Joe Firmage, what I'm told, Ron Pandolfi setting up a number of programs. I don't want to get into them. Some of it's in the book. One of them involves Joe Firmage, was a .com executive, billionaire guy. He lost a lot of his money, but he has actually, from what I'm told from 2 different sources, he's either back engineered a portal or he's about to back engineer a portal. And Ron Pandolfi's helping him do this. And the other person that's involved is Bob Bigelow. Ron has set up meetings with him, and he's probably just saying his version of what he thinks is going on. But this is what they're doing. They're setting this stuff up, and you're going to see this stuff coming out of Hollywood. What I'm told with the Tom DeLonge operation, I was told $1 billion, 200 million has been raised. It's going to be over 100. It's going to run for 5 years. It's going to be like a Star Wars series with toys and all this sort of stuff, and you can send in your UFO sighting. And Steven Spielberg is going to be in charge of this or involved. J.J. Abrams is going to be the director, and I know from the guy that's got 10 episodes, that's a good friend of mine, this is how I learned all this stuff. He's also they're trying to sell his series there, and they're also talking at that level of Spielberg. This is how they're trying to get this message out, and it all started in January of 2016. So here's how it ends. It's all consciousness. If you look from beginning to end, and the people that I'm talking to at the highest level know this consciousness thing. People fly the ship with their mind. There's numerous high-level people. The head scientist for Lockheed, when he was talking to Tom DeLonge said the minute he brought up the word consciousness, that's all the head scientists wanted to talk about. So they know this connection, and that's why I think they're trying to push the portal, because the portal isn't the secret space fleet, it's this wormhole thing, that you can move from one point in space to another point in space. And then when it comes to the White House, and I used to believe opposite, but I now firmly believe, and I say, They want you to chase the evil cabal. They want you to chase the Wizard of Oz. They want you down some back alley that goes nowhere. They don't want you to know that the Wizard of Oz lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The president is in charge of this whole thing. And it's like the Russian thing. You're never going to tie him into it. It's plausible deniability. And they want you to think that the president is crazy, but it is. The Wizard of Oz is the president of the United States. And that's basically where I'll leave it. I'll be at my book table. I have some of these books. And if you want to get involved and watch one of these actual events that takes place on the internet with Ron Pandolfi's wife, where they're taking, you can ask any question you want. You can ask, we asked about some of the people, the 24 people that he'd been involved with, and you could hear Ron in the back sort of answering and not answering questions. But they will take your questions, and you can watch this thing happen. Something has happened. There are 9 different disclosures that I mentioned in the book. There's 6 different teams, and they are busy trying to dump the idea into the UFO community.